Hello and welcome to Car Dealer Live. I'm James Baggett, founder of Car Dealer magazine, and today on the show I'm talking to some of the team behind the car buying website Carwow. Now joining me are Managing Director Athena Hubble, Editorial Director and star of YouTube Matt Watson, and Sales Director John Mealy. Good afternoon to you all.
Hiya.
Hiya.
Hi.
Super. Thank you ever so much for joining us. Right, firstly, for those who don't know, Carwow is a website that helps connect car buyers with dealers. It's achieved £5 billion worth of sales since launch in 2014 and has 2.1 million average monthly visitors, an amazing number. So let's get straight into it. Athena, I'm going to come to you first. You previously worked at Zoop, a company that grew to an eventual IPO. What similarities did you see with Carwow, and what made you decide to get involved in the business?
Yeah, good question. Initially, the time with Zoopla was from a sort of startup situation, and obviously Carwow was in a similar stage of its development. It's a digital marketing platform. That's the thing that was that we had in common, and I think large, big ticket items like house purchases as well as cars are both a necessity, but also something that's irrespective of transformation and change of the physical products and how much they cost. It's still a need. So it's the drive between connecting buyers and sellers really as a marketing platform, and that's the thing that we had in common. It's transforming, the industry is transforming because of changing consumer demands. That was the same with property. You had the likes of Purple Bricks, for example, setting up, changing what estate agents traditionally did in terms of servicing, slight risks around or fears around where they were monetizing, because they used to spend a lot of their money on marketing, but the transformation and having portals that are focused on facilitating and grouping together those audiences means that we spend a lot of time helping estate agents move that service further down the buying funnel. There's still a need in any transformation. It's about managing that change. So I think a digital marketing platform, something we had in common. I was really keen. I'm not an automotive expert. My experience is more in around connecting to changing consumer demands and how you can facilitate that from a marketing platform point of view. And so spending a lot of time listening to customers, trying to understand the consumer needs, and then putting us right in the middle about how we can most efficiently and effectively sort of connect the dots. So I think those were the similarities, and meeting James and the team, it was pretty exciting to hear of their plans and their commitment, and yeah, their desire to really want to help partners and to make a difference.
Athena, I'm going to come back to you in a moment and start talking about some of this research. I'm just going to move to John quickly. John, you're the sales director of the site. Quick opportunity here to sell your service to dealers. Some Carwow up for me, and explain how dealers can use it.
I think you explained it quite well earlier, James. Ultimately, we try and help connect dealerships to in-market buyers. More of our partners now are seeing us as a marketing platform. It's completely performance-based, so you pay for what you get. And I think specifically in this day and age, that's quite important. I know with ourselves, we've made some cuts on certain types of marketing, but we've kept our performance-based marketing going because we know what we get out of it. And I think that's a really important thing to do right now. And ultimately using this time to try and innovate as well and help partners with potential new strategies they might try and work on to ultimately achieve their goals.
I'm going to come back to you to talk a little bit about your advice for dealers in a moment. I'm just, Athena, can I ask you a little bit about the Carwow business? I mean, it's grown hugely over the last few years. Talk to me a little bit about about how many people you've got working for the business now.
Up until recently, unfortunately, we had a head of 250. It's an international operation, so we have offices in Germany and in Spain, and very much a concept that is looking at sort of future growth and extrapolating that over more countries. Unfortunately, as with, I suppose, a lot of businesses, we had to take advantage of the furlough, so less people around at this moment in time, trying to be a little bit more efficient. But we have new areas of growth that are really continuing because of consumer demand. So video, big part of what Matt does really well is to galvanize our YouTube audiences. Looking at content, our editorial writers, it's kind of independent review focused. My teams are around commercial efficiency, so dealer support, listening to feedback and helping dealers navigate their way through the services that we offer from our back-end functionality. Listening to customers, we have a customer support and service department in there, really constantly looking at Trustpilot scores, confidence in the type of services that they're seeing, any feedback that they're giving us in terms of what they want. And then we have our front end teams that are dealer facing, so deal with our partners. And their role is really much really around listening to what the partners need, creating a fluid way to market stock, a real focus around pricing. We have a lot of insights, not only for our consumer behaviors, but also around brand, a strong connection with OEMs, and an OEM team that works directly with those. That's really helpful for us, particularly to be able to pass those insights back to dealers. Yeah, just help them connect with customers in the most efficient way. And a big part of our internal team functions are all around helping end users of our platform. So the people within our dealerships that actually connect, answer the calls, connect with leads and inquiries, and giving them lots of insight and useful tools to help them make the best possible conversion. So at the point, a big key difference with Carwow is research and configuration has already been done by the time a connection is made. That's all done in an area where consumers can do it without sort of connecting. So they first can make decisions around what cars they want. They can look at all the research, they can do comparison, they can find price confidence. They do all of that, and then when they're ready, they send an inquiry directly through and connect to dealers. So they're registered, so we can see them, we know what they're doing. At the point they connect with our partners, they're pretty much chosen. It's around a 1 in 3 chance of them then going on to purchase a car, and they do it really quickly because they're ready at that point. So it's about a 10 days from the time that they send an inquiry to the time that they buy a car. So it's a really quick process, and it's just helping dealers maximize on that, compete, leverage all visibility across all their stock and pricing.
I mean, it really has been incredible growth that you've achieved over the years. I remember meeting James Hind, your founder, on a Ford launch right at the beginning, and I knew then he was definitely going places. And it's amazing to see what he's managed to achieve. I'd like to talk to you about this data. You've clearly got some very good operations in Europe. They're quite ahead of the curve when it comes to the coronavirus crisis compared to what we're experiencing here in the UK. What have you learned from Europe that the UK dealers can learn from, that can probably see that could be happening to them in the next few weeks?
Yeah, I mean, it's good for us to be able to have the level of insight we do, and having an international presence means, in this case, unfortunately, Spain went first. So Spain went to lockdown on the 14th of March. A week later, it was Germany, and then UK followed on the 23rd. And really, there's sort of 4 main categories of trend that are worth sort of talking about. First of all, in terms of the initial trends that we saw mirrored what we were seeing from our Spanish operation. There was a really quick descent in audience numbers on site, followed by some sort of confusion for dealers, either being sort of unprepared or unclear as to how much they would be able to continue to service customers. So in UK and Germany, that decline in audience numbers was down by 82%. Pretty significant, pretty quick over the course of a few days. And the expectation was that the audiences would be very inactive, likely more search going on because people were sat at home bored. So we sort of expected that to continue. But what's been surprising really is the number of customers which have stabilized and remain active. So in the UK, once what we've seen through the sites is once customers have configured a car, so top of funnel is down a lot, but at the point they're configuring cars through to inquiry or through to purchase, that conversion part of the funnel has remained pretty stable. So it's been interesting to have that level of resilience from the Carwow users, and certainly that was a surprise for us. In fact, in Germany, what's been interesting is that conversion rate has actually increased slightly. The other factor we're seeing is that a sentiment around the majority of people are preferring to choose available stock as opposed to factory order, probably not a surprise at this moment in time. And we've seen a 60% uplift in that appetite. So searches across the site for new and nearly new stock are hugely increased. If you can't physically obviously get to show somebody around your showroom or show them around a stock car at the moment, customers still want that information. They're still looking. And so the power of being able to have a quality of photograph, virtual tours of cars, etc., on your marketing platforms such as Carwow, really, really important. And I know Matt's going to talk about that a little bit later. That's his area of expertise. I'll leave that one to Matt. Talking about consumer sentiment a little bit. So we've done a lot of surveys across Spain, Germany and the UK, just to keep a sort of finger on the pulse in terms of what we can expect. 2/3 of people are definitely looking to delay their car buying plans. They're deeming them as non-essential, but interestingly, 1/3 of people still intend in the short term to go ahead and purchase cars. So it's only down about 1% in comparison with this time last year in terms of that trend and consumers' sentiment as to when they're going to buy. In the UK, 1/4 are definitely telling us that they want to buy with no direct contact. So indicating potentially here an opportunity for dealers that can adapt to deliver to that. We created, they're called perks, but they're in effect a flag on our site that allows our members to showcase the level of service that they're able to offer from touring, etc. And unsurprisingly, those that are able to showcase to consumers that they have levels of service on offer are getting the lion's share of those results. So 22% uplift in UK and a pretty huge 62% increase in inquiries through to dealers that are able to communicate and showcase what services and operational function they have.
So, sorry to interrupt you, but does that mean that those dealers are offering disinfected cars? They're actually managing to deliver them? Is that the sort of people that you're talking about?
Yeah, it's not necessarily, we've got no real understanding of the volume of cars being delivered. I know this is a slightly contentious point, but in terms of being able to handle a customer's inquiry, so take a deposit, fulfill all the paperwork, create an end date, albeit that may be a delivery date that's in the future. It's the ability to go end to end that's really seeing the bulk of the funneling of those inquiries.
I mean, I've heard from a couple of dealers today, actually, they've had some positive signs over the last few days of orders coming in. A lot of them are banking them, but some of them are managing to deliver. If you don't mind, Athena, I'm going to turn to John. I'd just like to ask him some questions along that. John, do you think dealers should be selling cars right now? And if so, how should they be doing it?
Yes, it's a very good question. I think ultimately it's a difficult answer. Right at the beginning, when lockdown first, got imposed, there was definite confusion. Lots of there were some dealers who kind of, they saw it coming, and they'd set processes up to be able to still remotely handle leads from working from home. And originally they were thinking we should still be able to deliver potentially from, if you looked at other sectors, the likes of John Lewis, IKEA, Amazon, etc., would still saying they would deliver. Even Kazoo in this sector said they would. And I think after that first week or so, there was a moral issue that came with it. And some of the groups I was speaking to, it's not just a case about, okay, let's deliver cars because, to make get some cash coming into the business. Still, it was a issue around protecting their staff and thinking about their staff safety. Also, the image that it could potentially give. I think some of those companies I mentioned had a bit of a hard time from consumers in some certain, social media outlets. So it was a hard challenge. And I think what we've seen most of the dealerships that we work with settle on now is getting themselves back up ready to do that lead handling. Because there are people coming through the site, as Athena said, there is still some demand there. It's a lot lower, but the demand is still there. And they're being able to like build their pipelines, build their order banks without necessarily actually carrying through the delivery just yet. And I think what we found quite amazing really is in the lockdown period, for instance, we've seen over 1,000 orders be reported to us by our partners. So that means they've taken 1,000 deposits. It doesn't mean they've delivered 1,000 cars, but they're taking those deposits where people haven't met them, the dealers, they haven't seen the cars, and they don't even know the delivery dates yet. So we were surprised by that, to be quite honest. And I think it's now a question of, when do the regulations, when do the government maybe steer us a bit clearer in terms of when it should be okay to what we call give essential deliveries, for instance. I mean, I know there are a handful of dealerships working with us that have delivered cars for key workers. And again, I think it's a different section altogether. There's some who haven't been able to get the processes to do that, but others who have. But in terms of returning to normal delivering to anybody, I think that most people are waiting for advice still from the government, because I think that they're worried about the image factor and the way their staff will react to being asked to do that. Funnily enough, looking in Germany, it is slightly different. So in Germany, obviously they're in lockdown. There's social distancing laws over there, but they're not as strict as ours by any stretch. And it varies state by state. And in some states, they've expressly stated that car dealerships can deliver cars. And when you look at what they're doing in this time period, they're doing what Athena was saying earlier, is the majority of the dealers who have talked about being able to completely remotely handle those leads, they're the ones who've seen over a 60% increase in getting the inquiries through. So I think there's a reaction from consumers to liking the ability to be able to interact in that way.
It's certainly a difficult one at the moment, isn't it? I heard from Kazoo this morning, funnily enough, they are starting to deliver again. They've done an offer for the NHS, and they have worked out a way of starting up deliveries again. And my point would be, there's a lot of people like Amazon and other online sellers that are still managing to deliver non-essential items. I had some sunflower seeds delivered to plant with my daughter, but I mean, you can hardly argue that they're essential. Yes. I mean, one would think that it would be the same with cars. Surely it's up to these dealers to come up with the safe way to deliver them, and then do business that way.
Yeah, I think it's a fair point. And I was actually speaking to somebody yesterday, one of the directors of a group yesterday, who said that they've got, a couple of people who are getting a bit kind of tetchy over pre-lockdown, they placed deposits, and now they're getting a bit antsy over, well, when am I going to get my car? And they're exploring ways on how to try and create a kind of like a safe contact list, and who can we deliver to, who can we use, how do we ensure the safety? and they are looking at, do we potentially look to try and do this over the next couple of weeks? But they've still been hesitant to actually do anything yet, and actually do those deliveries. We've had people tell us that they've been turned around by police whilst looking to try and deliver cars. This was still back end of March, that first real week of lockdown. Literally a recording of the guy saying, I've literally just been stopped and turned around. So it is difficult. It's a difficult time. I think it's, I believe Jeremy Thompson earlier last week was saying about, you've got to be really careful about trying to, coming across to customers that you're looking to make a quick buck, but at the same time, you want cash coming into the business, and that's a really hard balance to strike. I think what we've seen, I mentioned the orders that have come through, the reviews we're getting, the kind of the consumers that are now leaving reviews, there is a marked improvement in terms of not just, oh, this dealer's great or anything like that, but just the appreciation for the support the dealers are giving them to still be able to try and get a vehicle. It's really telling in terms of people, even under these circumstances, people are going above and beyond. They know they're working from home, and they're really helping. So I think it's a great chance to build kind of like strong relationships and show what you can do. And I think that is a fine line that specifically the dealerships I've been talking to, that we don't want to push too far and come off as the bad guys here. And I think they are just waiting for some more guidance. As I say, in Germany, that guidance has been given, so there's less judgment from customers. Over here, it hasn't really been given yet.
I know Matt's patiently waiting in the background, and I will get to you in a moment, Matt, but I've got just one more point on that, John. We wrote a piece on Monday about how in the United States, they're allowing dealers to go back to business by only selling online and then delivering with a skeleton staff. Do you think dealers in the UK are set up enough to take advantage of online sales if such a policy was put in place here?
Yeah, I think it depends how you define online sales. I think there's a kind of a mix there. There is what I'm terming as remote selling or remote buying, let's say, where there's no face-to-face interaction. It doesn't necessarily mean you need a full end-to-end e-commerce solution where they don't contact or don't speak to any sales execs. And I think, again, Andy Barrett was saying about he believes there are people who want to still speak to product experts, people about the car and how to finance them, for instance. So I do see I've already seen a shift from some groups in terms of committing to buying software to be able to do a full e-commerce solution, if that's the way that it does move forward. I think the majority of partners are at least setting themselves up where it might be that it's not a complete e-commerce, but you can make a phone call or send a message and complete while speaking to an expert at the same time, and then deliver the car without having to potentially walk into a showroom. And I think that, again, the people I've been speaking to, what we've been discussing, because we're in the exact same position, we're trying to work out, well, what does we've split things into what does the short-term future look like, and then where do we see the long-term future? And ultimately, you've got to, in my opinion, you've got to try and prepare for several eventualities rather than just betting on one. It's how could it look, and how would we, be nimble enough to adjust if it looked like this, this, and this. And again, that's, whilst we've got that downtime I mentioned earlier, it's time to innovate. Some of the stuff we've been working on with our members is how do you take those kind of like gambles in terms of what would they look like, and not every single one is going to pay off, but if one did, could that propel you in the future? So we're looking at helping them integrate. If they have made an investment into an end-to-end e-commerce solution, can they integrate that with us somehow to help that investment and give it the chance to work? It might not work, but it might work as well. And that's, I think people are just trying to work out what do those like futures look like. And I think lots of headlines over social distancing lasting at least 12 months, maybe 18 months, etc. So, and with the older population potentially being a bit more worried about the contact as well, and that's predominantly who are buying the newer cars that we see anyway, it could open up the ability and the people who are the dealerships who set themselves up to to try and tap into them, whichever way that is, I think they'll be the ones who can try and succeed out of this situation.
Thank you for that, Matt. I'm going to turn to you, and before I come on to your expertise with video, I'd just like to get your opinion on online sales. Do you think consumers are ready to buy cars online?
Well, I think they do already. Otherwise, Carwow wouldn't exist, and we wouldn't be growing. So people are shifting over to do that. People buy everything online, like sunflower seeds, James. So, you know, why not cars? People buy cars online. It's not going to be quite, I don't think it's going to be quite the same in the short term, that it's people just see the car, oh, I'm going to buy that, because it's a big purchase. People want to find out more about it. So there's still, people want to talk to dealers, they want to speak to experts about the car to find out more about this big purchase they're going to be doing, but they can do it all online. Why not? You can look around a car online, you could do it via WhatsApp. You don't necessarily have to be in the showroom. And I think that's where things in the short term, especially with social distancing, that's how it can work. And dealers can like really get on board with that and find out how to do that best for their customer to take advantage of this time. I
think this certainly could be the catalyst to catapult online car sales into the forefront of people's minds. I'd like to talk to you, obviously, about video. It's your expertise. Have you got any tips for dealers on how they could use video now to get information across to buyers who are perhaps sat at home with their iPads and phones with not much to do? Sorry, Matt, we've lost your sound there, I think.
It's all right, I'm so animated that
He's back.
I don't even need the voice. So there's loads of video content online about cars. So for instance, I've pretty much reviewed every single car. So if you've got customers that are, you know, they're about to buy, or you are communicating with a customer, you can send them in any email communication to them one of our videos. I mean, if you're a Carwow partner or a member, speak to our account management team and they could help you with that as well. Another thing you could do is for key cars, you could embed video reviews on your website. Now, as a dealer, you don't want to be spending money investing on doing full on video reviews yourself, because the ROI just won't be there, because the cost of producing video to that kind of standard is quite high. But there's the content already there, which you can just take and put it on your website. Once again, if you're a Carwow member already, you can speak to your account manager and they'll help you get different videos of ours you can put on your website. Now, there's a whole load of video reviews to choose from on YouTube. You can just type in the name of the car and you'll find them there. I would like to push the Carwow ones, of course, for the obvious reason. But, you know, they are engaging. YouTube wouldn't serve them. Like if you go on YouTube and you type in any car, we will generally be the top. In fact, every single time we will be the top review. That reason being that the YouTube algorithm sees our videos as being the most engaging, so it'd rather serve those to people. So if you're a dealer, go check out the video and you can just put it on your website. One of the things about having that kind of content on your website is that it boosts your ranking in Google, so it will help in terms of search, organic traffic. But if, like I said before, if you've got customers that have been looking at cars, send them a video. We actually do that through our CRM. We'll send people who are inquiring about cars our video reviews, because it helps get the excitement and maintain the excitement and interest in that car that they're looking at. And it'll allow you to continue to have like a conversation with them as well.
What about dealers creating their own videos, Matt? I mean, is it worth them spending their time doing it themselves?
Well, there's two aspects to this, I see. So one is that if you've got in-stock cars, you could quite easily do little videos on the in-stock car so people can look around it. So I do quite a lot of stuff on Instagram, and I will basically do a real-time 1-minute video walk around of a car to let my Instagram followers look around the car. And it's a very brief, concise overview, and it takes a minute to do it and probably about 3 minutes to post it. Now, obviously, I've practiced at it, but for instance, if you are a car dealer, you could practice doing that at home now with your own car on your driveway, so that when you are allowed back into your dealership, but there's still social distancing, you're on it, you know what you're doing. Now, for our members, I'm actually doing a how-to guide so that they can actually produce these videos. which will like explain certain kit you could use. So most people would just do it on your phone. That's right, film it on your phone, but the sound will be a bit cracked through the phone's microphone. So buy a little lav mic you can plug into your phone, and a really good one, you can get one for 40 quid. Then there's the fact you're going to be a bit shaky, right? You can buy a gimbal for about 60 quid. Now, if you're a dealership, you don't want to have that for all your salesmen maybe, but you could have one, that setup that's shared, and they could just use that, and it will make the video look so much better. Then there is simple software editing, like I use Video Editor on my phone. Video Editor, free app, right? And you can change the aspect ratio, so you could do it like portrait, like your mum film stuff, or you could do it landscape, like we film stuff. So you can do all that, and while you're at home, you can practice this stuff. Like I say, if you're a Carwow member, speak to your account manager. They'll be able to share the information that I'm going to be producing for our users. But generally, get out there and practice. The second thing is you can actually meet. We're chatting now. We could be in a room together, but we're not. We're online chatting. You can do this with your customers. I wouldn't suggest doing it through Zoom. My mum is the kind of person who buys cars, but she won't want to be faffing around with Zoom. But the woman knows how to use WhatsApp. Boy, does she know how to use WhatsApp. She's always bothering me on it, actually. But I like when I'm talking about certain things, like or trying to explain something to her, I will chat face to face with her, switch the camera around, and then I'll show her what I'm talking about. And you can do that if you're in your dealership and you want to talk to someone around a car. You can just have a chat and talk through different points around the car very, very easily. So I think there's going to be a lot more of that, as people will be wanting to buy cars, but they won't want to be coming into dealerships, especially older people.
What do you think, Matt, the car buyers want to know from dealers when it comes to those sorts of videos? I mean, what would you suggest that they put in the content of that video to sell it to customers?
So one of the things that on YouTube, right, one of the key things about YouTube is authenticity. I'm authentic. I'll say exactly what I think about a car. So if you are going to use some of our videos, watch it through and make sure that at the end I don't say it's crap, because you probably don't want to be sending that to your customer. But on the cars that are generally rated like good, then it will really help build excitement about a car. But the key thing is the authenticity. So do not use these videos as being like, if you're doing a stock car one, just keep it simple. This is the car, these are the features it's got, and this is how much it costs. Have a look around it. Almost like you're just showing your friend around the car rather than trying to sell someone something. Just let them see around the car. Let them see around the car. That's it. When you're doing like the chat on like over WhatsApp and stuff, it'll be just like you're doing it pretty much in the dealership, but you'll be doing it online. It's just that. The key thing with these videos, if you are going to do videos of stock cars or even your own like just general ones of new cars for new car buyers as well, rather than just in stock, just keep them simple, keep them kind of not salesy, and don't try and be a presenter, because that is one of the key things that I've noticed on YouTube. People who do TV then go onto YouTube and it just doesn't work because it seems too presented. YouTube, like in videos, and you can make errors sometimes and put them in because it seems natural. So just be natural.
What about social presence, Matt? You've obviously built up influencer levels of followings on Twitter and Instagram. Do you think dealers should be investing their time in social media? No.
There's this thing where you have to be there. There's this, I've got to be there. But to do it well does cost a lot of money. The other thing is that people don't really, unless you've got a brand like BMW M, or big high level brands like that, you're going to struggle to get following. People don't relate to organizations, that people relate to people. And so unless you can become a personality, I don't think there's any point. And you can use these platforms, but you're much better to use them for targeting advertising. Or let's say, if you have a platform, nick other people's stuff. So maybe I've done some photos, or some other influencers done some. I'm not an influencer. I'm a journalist. I am definitely, because with me, not everything's great. I like to tell it as it is. So you can just take their content, you can link to them. you know, if there's some pictures of a car that we post, then put it on your site, boom, and just refer to it. But generally, I would not bother, other than a lot of organizations use Twitter for customer complaints. But if you're a dealership, your actual reach is going to be so small anyway that you're better off just doing direct contact.
Just before I turn back to your colleagues and ask for some rays of light to look forward to over the next few weeks, give us an idea of what you're up to at the moment, Matt. I mean, you clearly can't go out there and film cars. What can your YouTube followers expect from you over the next few weeks and months?
Well, they can actually expect a lot of videos of cars that we filmed over the past 4 months before lockdown. Now, obviously, didn't preempt this at all. Otherwise, I'd have sold off all my index trackers in the stock market. So we basically we churn loads and loads of content. We're reviewing loads and loads of cars, and we can only do so much output. So we've got a whole back catalogue of videos which will see us for a long time. I'm supplementing those with things that we're presenting. I'm presenting with the green screen behind me, so my editors cut me out and have me floating around the screen while talking about new cars. I've seen some other other publishers, well, not actually a publisher, but you know what I mean. Some other publishers have basically stalled completely, but we were just in this lucky position that we had done so much work and basically worked like crazy that we had this whole back catalogue. In fact, I mean, truth be told, this time is actually quite nice for me because I'm not traveling around filming. It's not been completely mental, so it's good for me to like just be in my flat for a change. For everyone else, they're hating it. I think I'm the only person who's benefiting from lockdown.
Well, I look forward to
Don't hate me for saying this, okay? Because I know you're all going crazy out there. Please don't hate me.
I look forward to seeing what you come up with, Matt. Okay, Afina, can I just turn to you and just ask you, what do you think dealers have got to look forward to over the next few weeks and months?
Forward to. It's a challenge, isn't it? Because we're in a time of transformation. It's almost been enforced. So there's a degree of fear factor around it. But I think it would be safe to say that customers still have the same needs and desires. Are still the same people. And everything that worked previously, everything that made everybody successful as dealers prior will be the same. It's just the vehicle of translating it that we need to focus in on. So relationships with customers, exactly the same way as dealers understand the importance of that from the moment somebody walks into the showroom. It's just being able to harness that and translate it to an online piece. So it's not worrying about absolutely everything. It's not as big a change as might be thought, particularly if you don't try and do everything and just partner with specialists that can. There is that piece around if you try and hardwire in technology and make decisions about absolutely everything and how it's going to be, that creates a level of inflexibility. So I think now is the time, and it's happening with us in the same way it could with dealers, that you could really understand every depth of your organization and which parts of it, but by experiencing it. We know that managers are doing some of the key activities that were previously done by different levels of staff. And by doing so, it's really highlighting where there are some inefficiencies. And I know we've used that word a lot, but the balance of survival is either spend more or be able to grow without as much spend as possible. And that's, I think, what we're all after doing. So digital will provide that ability. Remote selling will force in, maybe earlier than previously, but force in a thought process to allow everyone to walk towards that. Won't be exclusive. And I do think that the benefit for dealers will be that as things return, they'll be able to find new levels of efficiency by doing this than perhaps they would have proactively gone after before.
Thank you very much. A huge thank you to you all for your time today. I found it absolutely fascinating hearing about your business in detail, and I'm sure our viewers have too. If you want to find out more about Carwow, you can head over to carwow.co.uk. They've got a fantastic website with all the information you're going to need. If you want to get involved in Car Dealer Live, email me. I'm on james@blackbullmedia.co.uk. You can find me on Twitter @CarDealerEd or LinkedIn. Send me a message there. Tomorrow, I'll be talking furlough, loans, and how to look after your bank balance with a team from accountants UHY Hacker Young. And then next week, I've got some brilliant guests lined up. On Monday, it's Neil McHugh from Snow's Motor Group. I'm talking to the senior executive team from Kia UK, Perry's MD, Darren Arden, and on Friday, Peter Vardy himself will be joining me. So if you've got any questions for any of them, please drop me a line and I'll do my best to answer them. There's a full schedule for Car Dealer Live on our website. Scroll down a bit on the homepage and you can find it, cardealermagazine.co.uk. We'll join us every weekday at midday for our next live broadcast, which just leaves me to say thank you very much to the Carwow team. Thank you for joining me and I'll see you all tomorrow. Thank you. Goodbye.